Hey everybody, this is Nick from Come to Pass, and you're watching The Rooster Show.
Before heading out to drop the hill.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Rooster Show. This is Rooster Jones. We're on our way to Perth, Australia. Yes, Perth. We're going to be talking with Grave Forsaken. And so let's see where that guy is. They're a thrash band, so thrash, doom, all that good stuff. Christian band though, from Australia. So let's find out what's going on. You know what I'm saying? They got a lot of albums, and I'm not gonna lie, all their albums are really darn good. And it started off with "Beside the River of Blood," 2006, and that was an amazing album. Hello, and how you doing?
Oh, g'day. How are you?
Wonderful. Do you go by Gregory or Vaughan?
Vaughan. Yeah, Vaughan's my name. So surname is Gregory. Are you getting me okay?
Yeah, I'm getting you perfectly.
Oh, great. Yeah. Cool. Oh,
See,
there's my alarm. That's reminding me to to
wake
get
up.
ready. Yeah.
Okay. That's so awesome. Well, I'm a big fan of you guys. You guys are amazing. I mean, I love your first album, 2006, Besides the River of Blood, and from there on, it just was a wonderful project. So good for you.
Yeah, no, thank you. Really appreciate it and really appreciate you wanting to do the interview and everything. So thanks for having me over. Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Okay, I noticed your first album, it says Row. So were you on what, Row Productions at the or Row Studio or whatever it was at the beginning?
Yeah. Y- Yeah, we were. We started off on Row Productions. It was yeah, quite unbelievable how all that happened actually, because being from Australia, I had met Steve a few times, even though he's on the other side of the country, and so we sort of had email contact, and we actually organized Mortification to come over to Perth in 2006.
Hmm.
So do you know the Live Humanitarian concert?
Yes.
Yeah, so me and a group of friends pretty much organized that concert to happen. And so that was how we really sort of got closely connected with Row Productions through the process of organizing that gig.
Yeah.
And yeah, so Steve took a bit of an interest in us, and it kind of went from there.
Yeah.
It was
Steve's
pretty
amazing.
amazing, actually.
Yeah,
It
Steve.
wasn't what
Go ahead.
I was just saying. It wasn't what I was expecting. You know, it wasn't. I didn't sort of. We didn't set up that gig in order to sort of end up on Row Productions. That Steve just offered it to us, and we couldn't quite believe it actually when that happened because we were pretty much Mortification fans. So it
Oh,
wasn't
big
what we were
mortification.
expecting.
Big mortification fan. Love
Yeah,
them. I mean, they were perfect. I mean, really, they were a perfect three piece. Just amazing. Um, their lyrics are intense, and their the style is brutal. I mean, what more could you ask for? You know. So, Grave Forsaken. How did that come about?
yeah. Okay, so I was funny because I was pretty much inspired by bands like Mortification. So I was always into music when I was growing up, like through the 90s as a teenager.
Yeah,
And we sort of wanted to do something pretty similar to what bands like Deliverance, Vengeance Rising, Mortification, Tourniquet were doing. That was really
yeah,
once I started getting into that music, I connected with a few guys at my church who were also into Christian metal. And it really just it went from there. So even though, you're talking about Beside the River of Blood, that didn't come out to 2006, I had sort of been playing in Christian metal bands for about 10 years until that point. So there was lots of sort of, when I say lots, there'd always kind of been a band that led up to becoming Grave Forsaken. So just went through various incarnations with different guys. It was that usual sort of um, almost typical story of a band of finding different people and just working your way through different lineups until you kind of hit hit the right lineup with the people with the same mindset. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
And
Exactly.
when
Yeah,
we kind of progressed into Grave Forsaken, so by 2004, we had in the band we had Elias, Tim, and Matt. Elias on guitar, Matt on bass, Tim on drums, and that's when we decided to actually call it Grave Forsaken. We'd had a couple of different names leading up until then, and um, I remember we were going in it was called the Gospel of Stedford. It was like a Christian music, I guess, well, I don't want to say competition, but like lots of different groups would go in it, and
yeah,
yeah, we there was a few other sort of rock bands from Perth in it, and we went in that, and we're sort of before we went in it, we decided, that we needed an identity for this lineup, and Tim, who's the drummer, had suggested the name Grave Forsaken, amongst others. We had lots of name, when you're trying to
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
come
of
up with a
course.
name for a project, and we just
I
kind of
got I got a page
settled
of
on
like
that, and
I got a page of a bunch of punk names, yeah, front and back. And I just
yeah,
started brainstorming and just this. Got some goofy ones on there
we
too.
were
Oh
actually
my lord,
we were nearly called Eternal Destiny. Actually, that was kind of a working name that we had
that's a good one.
before we settled on Grave Forsaken. So it was kind of like we did this gig, and it's like, "Oh, what should we tell them we're called?" And they're like, "Oh, and up next is Grave Forsaken," and we're like, "I guess we're Grave Forsaken now." That's really what happened.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
funny. So,
Hmm.
how is doom metal? What do you guys consider yourself? Thrash, doom metal? What?
It's an interesting question because I guess most people sort of think of it as thrash now. When we started, we definitely thought of ourselves as more sort of doom death, believe it or not, because we're big Paramecium fans. Like Paramecium's actually probably my favorite Christian metal band.
Yeah.
Um, like all told, like I love all those other bands we've mentioned, but Elias and I were massive Paramecium fans,
Yeah,
and
yeah, they're excellent.
yeah, so even though like River of Blood doesn't really sound that much like that, that was a big influence on that particular when the band started. So like we're just sort of finding our feet really. We didn't really go in and say, okay, we're going to be this style or this style. We're just really drawing influences from those bands that we mentioned and sort of um, just doing our best and sort of you stumble upon your own sound along the way, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I do. That
Yeah.
is all the bands that you said were all bands I kind of grew up the same bands. Except for you
Yeah.
did mention Living Sacrifice, Sacrament, Seventh Angel.
Oh yeah, no, I was into all of those as well. But
Yeah.
back in the 90s, for whatever reason, in Australia, well in Perth, so Perth's like isolated from the rest of Australia, so we're like 4,000 kilometers from Melbourne and Sydney, so we're like right over on the
Ooh.
west coast. Um, for some reason, the local Christian bookstores had Intense record products. So bands that were on Intense were the ones that you more easily got. So that was your Deliverance, your Tourniquet, your
Yeah.
Mortification, your Vengeance. They
That's awesome.
they were easier to get a hold of because pre-internet, right? So
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was just so if somebody you knew had like a Seventh Angel tape would be like, oh man, you know, this guy's got a copy of Lament for the Weary, you know, we've got to check this out. Like
Yeah.
you'd sort of, you know, sort of pass that tape around because no one else had a copy of it, you know?
I
Yeah,
do. It was funny that talking about a Christian bookstore. I had a Christian bookstore here in town here that I used to get my vengeance from and
yeah,
sacrament. I had a special order, everything. And it was so funny because they were
yeah,
really old, uh, beautiful ladies, but older ladies that were running that Christian
yeah,
bookstore. Oh, what can I do for you, young man?
yeah,
I want this Vengeance Rising CD, and they're like looking at the cover and looking at me, and are you sure this is Christian? And
yeah,
all this. And I'm like, yes,
yeah.
yes. I honestly don't listen to secular bands that are metal. I never
Okay,
have. I listen to punk, and all that that are secular, Black Flag and all that good stuff. But
yeah,
when it came as far as metal, I feel that it's you know you gotta have your priorities in check. I mean, like we're Christians, we can't be singing about loving Satan and the darkness and this and that. So I mean, I just kind of got right into the Christian metal. Light Force was one of
yeah,
the first bands I started off with. Light Force, yeah, which is Mortification, but
yeah,
and so
yeah.
I started with
I almost
them,
sort of
and
think of them as the same thing now.
yeah, exactly, yeah, and much love to Steve. I wish I would have had a chance to talk to him. He's been done a lot for the music scene, for
Yeah,
metal. So
he was hugely influential and like he was just as a sort of young Christian, I guess, growing up in Australia, it was to see these Australian guys like doing doing the Christian metal thing. It was like the world sort of in some ways got a lot smaller with the internet. Um, like to me, you know, Deliverance and Tourniquet might as well have been on Pluto. Do you know what I mean? But
yeah,
having those guys as Australians, it was accessible and
yeah,
I could relate to them. You
yeah,
know, spoke
exactly.
the same way as me and you know, culturally similar. So you know, I know for a lot of Australian, I mean, they were influential for everyone, but for a lot of Aussies, they were, you know, very legendary and very influential, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I heard one of them, I guess the guitarist, one of the former guitarists of Mortification, has terrophobia now.
Yes. Yeah, that's
Eh,
Mick. Yeah. So Mick played at that gig in 2006 that I was telling you about before, the live
yeah,
humanitarian. So I haven't actually seen him for a long time, but yeah, um, yeah, he's a real, you know, down to earth, just a really good guy. I got along really well with Mick. We actually had quite similar kind of interests and stuff. So yeah, I'd love to catch up with him again actually sometime. Yeah.
that's awesome. We got him coming up on the show, so
Oh,
that's
cool.
awesome. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Excellent.
We
Well,
got
tell
it.
him I said hi. I mean, I
I
could say hi to
will.
him myself.
I, I guess you could. You're probably a lot closer than I am to him. But
Yeah.
anyways,
Yeah, well, I don't
that's
get to
awesome.
Melbourne very
Oh, he's in Melbourne.
often,
Oh,
being
okay.
over here in Perth. But yes, I must. Hmm? They're in
Melbourne,
Melbourne.
you said?
Yeah,
Okay.
Mortification are from. Yeah, they're from Melbourne. Most of those guys,
Okay.
pretty sure all of them live in Melbourne. Yeah.
Okay. Is that's a pretty big city, right?
Yeah, yeah. Sydney and Melbourne are the big two the
The
two
big
biggest
two.
cities in Australia.
Cool.
Then you got Brisbane, Adelaide, and Perth. There's
Okay.
sort of five really big cities.
Okay, so now you're the lead singer, right? For
Yeah.
Grave Forsaken and the guitarist?
Yes, I am. That's correct.
Okay.
Well, one
How,
of the
how long you
guitarists, yes.
how long you been playing guitar?
When did I start? Around 2000, actually. It was around 99, 2000, because you know how I was telling you about the earlier sort of iterations of the band.
Yeah.
Um, like most musicians, like I actually started off playing drums, as in not most musicians, but we all have different kind of pathways. But one particular band I had, or lineup of the band, we had another drummer, so you know, I decided to pick up the guitar and sort of play along because, you know, it was pretty simple stuff in those days. And I kind of just learnt and have been playing ever since. Yeah. So about 25 years now. Yeah.
Wow. Well, you're a little late bloomer though when it comes to playing
Yeah.
guitar, huh?
I did. Yeah, that's true. I did drums during high school, actually.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So
You pretty good with
um,
drums?
sorry.
You pretty good with drums?
Well, I haven't played for a long time. I got to a decent level, but once I sort of picked up guitar, I sort of didn't focus as much on drums anymore.
Okay.
But you know, you talk about mortification. Like Jason Sherlock was a huge influence on me growing up, and you know, I got a chance back in it was 97. Was over in Melbourne, and I connected with Jason, and like he showed me his kit, and you know, I remember sort of like playing while he was watching, and it was pretty you know, how can I put it? Like it was pretty humbling experience because Jason was so good, you know. But yeah, very, you know, very good memory, definitely hanging out with him and, you know, playing on his kit and all that. Yeah.
That's awesome. Good for you.
Yeah.
So you're the actual this is your project. So what is was your main goal with Grave Forsaken?
Yeah. Okay. So it sort of evolved, you know, sort of progressed into being my project. So when it started, it was a bloke who I went to church with called Chris. So
Yeah.
we really just wanted to we were, like I said, we were inspired. So it really started off pre-Grave Forsaken days. It was him and I, you know, we would just after church, you know, we'd just talk metal and we'd be sitting in the car listening to Tourniquet, listening to Deliverance, you know, all those bands
Yeah.
we're talking about on tapes.
Yeah.
And we just wanted to do that in Perth. So the goal was to be that sort of Christian heavy metal band in Perth, basically, because Perth has always because we're sort of on our own over here on the west coast of WA, we're just, you know, fairly isolated. And, you know, a lot of bands, if they're touring Australia, will skip Perth, you know, because it's too expensive to get over here. So the idea of, you know, like Deliverance or Tourniquet or any of those bands ever coming to Perth, you know, so we just wanted to be that for Perth, basically, because no one else was doing it over here. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, just a strong Christian heavy metal message, heavily inspired by those bands. We just really we really just you know uh, looked at what they were doing and tried to do our own version of it here. That was the goal. And there's also a goal to be long term with it. Like, I'm really happy that, here in 2025, I'm still talking about it and we're still
Yeah.
going. I
Yep.
never wanted to be like, do a couple of albums then disappear. It always used to frustrate me when a band would, they'd just disappear,
Yep.
So I always sort of had a
Yeah.
strong commitment to just keeping on going regardless. So yeah, just long-term Christian metal ministry band. That was the goal. That was what we planned to do. So
Yeah.
I would have been thrilled.
Yeah.
I would have been
So
thrilled to think,
keeping your music fresh and up to date. Is it easy for you to come up with new material?
yeah, it is, to be honest. It is. I mean, we've got I think a lot of bands say this. It's almost like we don't really have to try too hard to sort of sound like ourselves. Does that make sense? Like,
Yes, it actually does.
if we come up with some riffs and
Yep.
put put the vocals on it, and it's always like heavily Christian themed, the music, so it's got that sort of distinctive thematically, so we never find it too difficult to, because Christianity is a big topic. There's a lot to talk about,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
so it's never difficult coming up with song ideas in terms of lyrically. Um, Probably the main difficulty is actually getting the time to record and put it all together. Like
Mm,
everyone working jobs and got families and all of that.
yeah.
That's probably the biggest challenge is actually, you know, producing the music. Yeah.
You know,
So
coming up with
no,
an
in
idea
terms of
for,
keeping fresh, that
yeah, go ahead. No, go ahead. We Go
I
ahead.
was just saying, yeah, keeping a
Yeah, okay, yeah, it keeps going out. That's all right.
little bit
So,
sorry about that.
no, don't be sorry about it. No, actually, believe it or not, my connection is better like overseas. I don't know why it
Oh,
is.
okay.
We're so
Yeah.
much better. I had a bride right before you, and
Yeah.
yeah, remember that album, Kinetic Faith, man, good stuff, good album, and
Oh, it's
yeah,
just
but
funny that you had
it
Bride
kept going
because, I was
out
telling
though.
you about,
Ooh, I like the shirt.
yeah, okay. No, well, everyone says this, but like Snakes in the Playground was just a massive album in my growing up, like through high
Yeah,
school and everything. And we used to, talking about sitting there listening to tapes and whatnot.
yep.
Snakes in the Playground was one of the albums, so if you would have told me that, I was getting interviewed straight after Bride back then, I would have thought, well, we must do okay with this Christian metal thing, you know. It's
Uh,
quite funny.
it's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're doing good. You're on the right track. So, so
Yeah,
what?
well, thank you. Yeah. We'll
So
keep we'll keep
when it comes to doing the metal, then, so you never were much into Slayer and all that good stuff, obituary and all that. Were you much into the darker metal?
it's funny, like I related to something you said earlier, in terms of you only listen to the Christian metal. So before I knew about Christian metal, the main bands I listened to were like Kiss, Iron Maiden, AC/DC, those kind of bands.
Yes.
And then I discovered Christian metal. So I didn't actually get really heavy until I got into Christian metal. So I mean, I
Oh,
had Injustice for All and Master of Puppets. I knew Metallica, but it was only once I got into the Christian metal that was when again, like Vengeance Rising was the heaviest thing I'd ever heard when I first heard them.
yeah.
So it and no, so Slayer was a band that never actually came across. I was very aware of Slayer. You'd see it written on people's school bags and see the t-shirts and everything. But no, it wasn't something I listened to a huge amount. In fact, it wasn't until um, our third album, This Day Forth, some people said it reminded them of Slayer. That I actually like checked out Slayer, to see what this apparent similarity was, because
Yeah,
it actually they weren't a band that I'd listened to a great deal. I was quite you know I was teenager going to church, and I was sort of similar to what you were saying. I was quite careful about what
yeah,
I
of
listened
course.
to, and like I tried to be quite discerning, and I did actually go through a phase where I only listened to Christian metal for quite a few years of my life.
Hmm.
I didn't listen to any secular music at all. That's not the case now, but I still have a big Christian. Certainly in terms of heavy music, it's pretty much only Christian stuff that I would listen to. Like
Yeah,
really heavy music, all my favorites sort of death metal bands and all that are Christian bands. So,
yeah,
but of course, subsequently have heard Obituary and all those bands now. I've checked them all out subsequently, but no, initially it was the Christian bands that
yeah.
got
That's
me into
cool.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's same here. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just can't find myself to do it. I just can't find myself to listen to it. I mean, I respect them as being like,
Yeah. No,
godfathers of
that I
thrash
can
and all
understand.
that, and doom and all that, but nah, I I, I leave it at that. Give them the credit where credit's due, but move on. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
yeah,
No, fair enough. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Okay, you got a lot of albums out. Do you feel
Yeah.
that you have your music has got progressively better, or do you
Yeah, it was.
feel that you kind of keeping that same tradition of the early to now?
Yeah, it's interesting because like when you're doing the music, you're trying to improve on each album, but how can I put this? You're not. It's just kind of the next batch of songs, and you just naturally get better as you go through.
Yeah,
So a lot of the feedback we got early was that we were improving with each album. So, we'd read reviews, and, when Destined for Ascension came out, the reviews would say, "Oh, this is a step up from Beside the River of Blood," and then This Day Forth came out, and the feedback we get is, "Oh, this album is this is better, this is the best one yet," and that went all the way through to It Has Begun. That the feedback we would get would be that the albums were getting better and better. Um, it wasn't something that we were saying; it was just what people were telling us, because it's very hard to listen to your own music objectively because
yeah,
you hear it so many times that by the time you actually put it out, um, you're not sure if anyone's going to like it. You're thinking of people just, it's a weird thing because you know, one part of you knows that if people like the old stuff, they'll like this, but you always got this sort of hesitancy about putting out something new.
yeah,
Um, but I think since then, over the last few albums, I think we've got our sound and style, and um, yeah, I think we're just keeping to that. How can I put it? We've got our sound and style, and
yeah. You
that just is
do
what comes
actually.
naturally to us. And it sort of
Yes.
everything we do sort of encompasses everything we've done because each time we do something new, everything we've learnt in the years before is sort of represented. Does that make sense?
Yeah, oh, it totally does. Because
Yeah.
honestly, you've been very consistent
Mm.
on your albums. Sound, yeah, I mean, I feel like you get a little more heavier. It gets a little more intense and more complex as the
Yeah.
albums go, but you keep that same. vibe, that same feeling, that same initial feeling that you got with the early albums. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You've been very
Yeah.
consistent on that, so that is good.
No, that's good to hear because it's intentional in the sense that we wanted to be, uh, people would know what they were getting with us. That was important to us. I was, look, whatever artists want to do, I totally respect, but I always found it funny when bands would completely sort of change their sound and style.
Ooh,
And
I
so
don't
I,
like it.
yeah, I mean, if they want to do it, that's fine. But I would hear that and think, oh, if I had a band, I'd probably want to be a bit more consistent than that. So you saying it's consistent is really pleasing to me
Yeah,
because
yeah.
A, it's intentional, but also it's what we play. So if I pick up my guitar and plug it into my amp, which is right here, um, and I play a riff, it just sounds like a Grave Forsaken riff. Like I don't really have to try anymore to get that sound, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
So in that
that's awesome.
sense, it's just what comes out. It just sort of
Yeah,
naturally comes out of us. It's hard. I sometimes sit there and think about it. I don't really know how you do it, but it it's it's um it's like it just you're a conduit for the music.
yeah, exactly.
It's a funny thing.
So
Hmm.
tell me about your new album, um, the one that's behind me.
Yeah, it looks great on that. The way you've got it in the background there looks fantastic. I
Moment in
That's
time, my
cool.
friends. Moment in time. It came in March 29th. He says, okay, cool.
Yeah,
11
that
tracks
was
on it.
last year though.
Yes, this was your last one. So you got another one in the works?
Yes. Yeah, yeah. Well, the thing is, we always kind of do. So even if we haven't sort of officially said, "Oh, we're making another album," there's
Yeah.
always like a batch of demos, a batch of lyrics. So yeah, the skeleton of the next album is exist. It's there, but that's always been the case.
Yeah.
We've
That
always, by the time one comes out, we're already a little bit down the road with the next one.
you have a really unique creativity when it comes to your album covers. Who does the graphic designing for that?
Who does it?
Yeah, who does the graphic design or the artwork?
Yeah, so we've had different artists over the years. So Moment in Time was done by a guy called Ward Silverman, who connected with us. He initially just sent us emails, you know, saying that he's an artist, and I looked at some of his work online, and sent him a message, and we got him to do that cover for us. So the robot thing started by accident, actually. So we we did This Day Forth. We got a the cover of This Day Forth, which was our third album, was provided to us by a guy called Charlie, who was a friend of
Okay.
Elias's. And it was around the time that
Day fourth. Okay, yeah, I see it with
Transformers
the
had come
the
out.
yeah,
So,
shooting.
robots were.
Yeah, I
I've
see it.
probably
I
got it
got the I
here.
got the cover right
I've
here.
normally got all that. Yeah. Yeah. So, Elias showed me this artwork, or, presented this artwork to the band that this guy Charlie had done, and it was this robot. And we're looking at it and we're like, does a robot kind of fit what we're doing? Because we're still sort of going for that kind of doomy, thrashy death kind of vibe,
Yeah, yeah.
on the first two albums, which the music still was. And we're just like, because we don't have a huge budget either, so we're like, well, let's just go with it. It had been presented to us,
Yeah.
and we just kind of looked at each other and said, yeah, let's do this. It's this kind of like post-apocalyptic scene, and we just decided to go the this day fourth cover, had been presented to us, and then it was, we're like, oh, hang on, this is actually like a cool theme, I suppose, a little bit inspired by something like Iron Maiden, how they've got the
Yeah.
same theme kind of through their album covers. So we then, for the next album, Fight to the Death, the same guy did the artwork. Um, then Elias did a few of the covers himself, so he's not in the band at the moment, but Elias did some of the covers, like he did Reap What You Sow and It Has Begun, and the original Plugged Into the System cover. And
You notice you got a lot of knights on your covers as well. Knights
how do you mean? Sorry.
and knights,
Yeah,
like shiny armor knights. Yeah.
yeah. So that was, yeah, It Has Begun. So that was probably Elias's influence. He was sort of big on that kind of imagery. So we just decided, we stumbled on the robot theme by accident, and then it was a very deliberate thing going forward. And so when I got Ward to do this particular cover, he had seen all the Grave Forsaken album covers, and he said, "I've got some cool ideas for like a robot and something that looks Grave Forsaken-y." And he came up with that, and I would argue it's the
Forsaken
best
it.
one yet, actually.
I like your shirt, by the way. That's awesome.
Yeah, that'll
That's
work.
cool. Yeah, it's good job.
Yeah, yeah, this is the moment in time shirt. Yeah, I thought I'd wear that for the interview. Yeah.
Yeah, looks good.
This
Looks
was
good.
done by Anchor Merchandising, so we've got a few things there on Anchor Merchandising that people can
Actually,
grab.
I have yes, Anchor Merchandising for on Facebook. Yes,
Yeah, so they
they do a good
do.
job.
Yeah, yeah, they're sort of like the go-to place for sort of a lot of Christian metal bands these days. So yeah, they've got some good designs on there, and yeah, I love what they do. Yeah.
Yes, good people. I only
Hmm.
found out about them this year. I got
Okay.
a mortification shirt through them.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. Schools at the big on.
Yeah. Well, yeah. They've got quite a few modification designs over there. Yeah.
Well, what was one of your favorite albums by them, by the way, by Mortification?
Modification, probably. Yeah. The first one, because that was the first one I got. So the self-titled one.
Oh
Then
yeah,
Scrolls.
brutal warfare and all that.
Yeah. And I was also a big fan of. I mean, I like all the albums, but when A Vision Evangeline came out, that was a really big influential album for me, particularly the title track. Uh, so I used to, pump that along in the car, and I knew every single word to that album, so I'd like sing along with the album while I was driving. So um, I
Look,
probably learned like singing along to Envision Evangeline.
that's
Like I
funny.
say, they were pretty influential on me.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. It's
Hmm.
good influence, though. That's good
Oh,
influence.
absolutely. Yeah.
So, tell me about your testimony. Then, you're obviously a Christian. What got you into being a Christian?
Yeah, so my mum used to take me to Anglican church. So we weren't from a hugely churched family, I guess. Like,
Yeah,
but mum would take me along when I was a kid, and so that was like the initial seed, I guess, to my Christian journey. And then I used to go to. It was actually through youth group. Like youth groups were really big over here in the 90s. I suppose they still are. I don't know, but that sort of 90s youth group culture or 80s and 90s. So I went to a youth group at a Uniting Church, Bicton Uniting Church in over here in Perth, and yeah, they've had a couple of really good leaders, and having had that background, going to Sunday school and all that, it all just sort of came together for me, when I was sort of an early teenager, 12, 13
yeah,
years old. We're quite lucky because back then, we used to have scripture in schools still in WA in government schools. So you'd actually
Mm.
do scripture. They don't do it anymore. But the
No.
combination of youth group, scripture, Sunday school background, yeah. By the time I was sort of in high school, which is like over here when you're like about 13, you go to high school. It's even younger now, 12, 13. Yeah,
Wow.
I had started regularly attending the church that I went to youth group at. So I'd go to youth group on a Friday and church on a Sunday. And that's actually where I met Chris, who sort of started this musical journey with. So, by the time I was probably 15 or 16, I was pretty keen on you know, my I guess ministry being Christian metal. So it really it was as simple as having some good influences early in life and then, having some good role models
Yep.
when I was a teenager, some older, Christian people who were good role models. And I just sort of have carried that with me ever since. Yeah, it's just been a big part of my life ever since. Yeah.
Awesome.
Um,
Do you do many shows in Perth?
not in recent times. We did used to. It is something that we always sort of talk about getting up and going again. But I know it's what everybody says, but I say it's just once we all started getting kids and like having kids at
Yeah.
primary
So
school age and all that, it just got harder to be out. Um, we would often like play at 11 o'clock at night, midnight on a Saturday kind of thing, and then have a family at home and waking up tired on a Sunday morning because you've been out at playing a show that
yep.
night. But now that all our kids are older, it is something that we want to get back into. But yeah, during sort of that peak period of the band, we were doing a lot of like local metal shows, and we'd just be on lineups with just the local metal guys. It was really really cool,
Yeah.
and it was they would often say to us, in fact, in a lot of ways, that was probably our best ministry, just like being like Christians who hopefully they respected because a lot of people would have an issue with Christianity, particularly in that scene. And
Yeah.
one
Of
of the best
course.
things that people could say to me back in when we're doing that a lot more was, hey, I don't have much time for the church, but like, yeah, I really respect what you guys are doing. Like that was almost the best compliment that somebody could pay us. And I'm sort of pleased to say that we got that feedback a lot. People really respected what we did. It was a good experience actually.
Awesome.
I miss those days actually. Yeah.
Well, we're done. Okie dokie. Grave Forsaken. Moment in Time, their new album. That came out last year. And they have some new stuff in the works, like you said. So that's exciting. It's very exciting. It's nice to talk to these people from Australia. I like my people down there. Good people. So let's see what's going on. What's up?
Hey, we're back.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so have you, as a musician, decided to try out any other genres besides just doing metal?
No, I haven't really. The closest I got to that was me and a friend decided to try more of a rock sort of project, but never really came to anything because what would happen is as soon as we'd sort of start playing is what I was talking about before, like it just sort of go in this sort of grave forsaken direction,
Yeah,
So no, it's not really something that I've ever tried, and I'm sort of I guess yeah, it's just like in my music DNA is just the grave forsaken style. It's
yeah,
almost like I feel like. if I tried to do anything different, it would just kind of tend back towards that anyway. So no, it's not something I've really I mean, I mainly only listen to hard rock and metal as well, so I almost don't even have any other influences much that are, outside of that genre. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the closest might be, I don't mind a bit of, there's an Australian band called Ice House who I used to listen to a lot when I was a kid.
Oh, Ice House. Yeah.
And they're sort of more sort of, you've heard of them?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were
I
one of
heard
my
that name.
favorite bands growing up. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's probably as sort of far from metal as I get, and that's sort of still sort of synth pop kind of rock,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
I didn't know they were
So
from
yeah,
Australia.
so
Okay.
no, not a great deal of experimentation outside of Grave Forsaken. Hmm.
Well, that's I got to tell you about Bride. It's funny they started like because they listen to country. That's all they grew up listening was country,
Yeah.
and then they put out their first three albums, a Bride, which was thrash,
Mm.
more thrash sound,
Mm.
and they're like, we didn't even like thrash, but they decided
Yeah.
to do it anyways. It's like you got from country to
Yeah, well, I heard
thrash.
something
Now you're
similar.
doing
Like,
rock.
yeah, yeah, and I sort of, you can pick up even early on. What was the on Snakes in the Playground, Salt River Shuffle or something they had on that. I
Okay.
seem to remember. Yeah, so you
Yeah.
could sort of pick that influence up, even even like from the other side of the world on one track. So I'm not surprised to hear that they grew up only listening to that. That doesn't
Yeah.
surprise me at all.
Crazy. So yeah, that's awesome. So
Hmm.
so you said it was kind of the early years. It was a little bit hard to. Was it hard to get this funded? This project?
Yeah, well, it's all pretty much self-funded. We've always been more or less self-funded, so we've had we've yeah, initially we paid for all the recording and we tried to find, I guess, like people who could help us, at
Yeah.
reasonably low cost. So we self-produced. You talk about Beside the River of Blood, we self-produced that. So we knew a guy who was looking to become like get involved in music production. So we engaged him to produce that with us. And so a lot of that was recorded in home studios at the place I was living at the time. And the guy who produced it, his name was Ben. A lot of it was recorded at his place.
Hmm.
Um, and then um, Dan Holmes, who produced a few of our albums, he actually had a home studio that was
Yeah.
called Fat Dog Studio. So we were able to engage him to help us record. That was Destined for Ascension, This Day Forth, Fight to the Death, Reap What You Sow were all done with him at his
Hmm.
home studio. And then we went on to we had a guy called Luke Gallagher in the band. Now you talk about different music genres. Luke's a guy from here in Perth, but he's actually living in Nashville now, doing country music. Funny you talk about Bride. So there is any, so not so much myself, but Luke is a metal player and a country player. So he's actually living in Nashville playing like in the Nashville sort of country music scene. So that's
And
why
he
he's not
still
playing
does.
Grave Forsaken anymore.
Oh, he doesn't work with you guys no more. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he'll
He's
still
mainly country.
yeah, so if we were recording an album, he would definitely be happy to like remotely record solos for us and all that kind of thing. Um, and sort of he did some of his stuff on Moment in Time remotely, but he was here for the start of recording that album, and then he had moved to Nashville by the time we finished recording it. So his last few solos were recorded from Nashville, and like he we uploaded them through Dropbox and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we haven't actually tried doing a full album with Luke being out of the country. like a lot of that album was composed with him still here. So that's that. We're not actually quite sure what we'll do on the next album, whether we'll get Luke to do those or not. It will depend on his schedule and all of that, but we haven't actually worked that out yet. But yeah, it's just interesting when you mention the side sort of genres. I should have mentioned Luke doing the whole Nashville country music sort of that sort of was his dream, to do that. So we're really happy for him. He's
Yeah,
doing
that's
well.
awesome. That's
Um,
so cool.
what were we talking about before that? I sidetracked to that. I can't remember.
I sidetracked a little bit too. Your bandmates say you have now. Do you have pretty much a full band? Like
So at
like
the
you have someone who's doing the drums. You don't have to do them program them, right? You don't do the drums
yeah, no,
program
so
and all
yeah,
that.
so Tim does the drums.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Tim he was the original drummer, and then he left the band in about 2007, and we had Dave, and then we had Richard, and then we had Josh. But Tim's back in the band now, has
Okay. He was
been
on
for a
this
few years.
album.
So yeah, he does the drums. Yes, yes, that's
Okay.
Tim on that album. He did Footsteps of God as well. Footsteps of God was his first album back with us.
Okay.
And Matt has always played bass. We've always had the same bass player on every single album. So Matt's been there since the beginning. And our original lead guitarist was Elias. So there was me and Elias were both playing guitar in the band. And Elias has sort of had a few stints in and out of the band, but he actually like whether he's in the band or not in the band, me and Elias are like thick as thieves, so we're always in touch with each other. So he actually did a few songs on this album on Moment in Time as well. Sort
Okay.
of, I guess, as like, you know, how can I put it? Yeah, he might have been coming back into the band and recorded some stuff, and then he didn't quite work out to come back full time, but he's sort of he's always not far from our hearts, Elias. Um, yeah,
So
so um, he sort of had a few stints in and out of the band.
I got you. So you consider yourself more of a studio band than a live performance band right now?
Right now, uh, yeah, right now that's the reality. It's not like that's the permanent situation that we want it to be, but that's sort of what it has been for the last few years. Sort of,
Yes.
that's yeah, that's been the reality for the last few years. But we're always, sort of talking about, let's get the show back on the road kind of thing. So we definitely want to, be a live band again. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Okay. What's one of the biggest lessons you learned having
Biggest
this,
lessons we've learnt.
yeah, that you've from the very first album to now? What's one of the biggest lessons you've learned?
Not to worry about how it will be perceived because I spent a lot of time in the early years being stressed out about how we'd be perceived. Just having faith
I can
that
understand that. I
what
can
you're do
understand that.
yeah. So just worrying about how, will people like this song or that song? Will this album be, more popular than the previous album? All of those kind of things. I just don't worry about any of that anymore. It's really just about putting together, the next batch of songs and producing it as best as we can and putting it out there. And it sounds cliche, but if one person or 10,000 people stream the song, it doesn't matter. Um, it's really just about uh, putting the music out there and not worrying too much about perception or trying to top what you've done.
Yep.
I actually think
Well,
there's a lot of bands who I think they could do so much more but they sort of get limited by the weight of their own sort of history. So they think, oh, we can never top what we did before, so we're not going to. But I really respect bands who just keep putting out new music, whether it's, as popular as their old music or not. So I try to do that as well.
Yeah,
So yeah, that's been a big lesson for me. Just don't stress about it and just have confidence in what you're doing.
yeah. We can be our own worst enemies sometimes, when it comes to that, you know, be our own worst critic,
Yeah.
as well. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
well,
because go ahead.
that's something that we talked about mortification. That's something that Jason Sherlock said to me. He said, "You are your own worst critic," and it's always stuck with me.
Ah,
It's quite a wise thing to have said because yeah, no, if somebody doesn't like your music, they're just going to go on to the next thing. No one's sitting there like tearing their hair out because they don't like the new Grave Forsaken song. So like, why
yeah,
should I worry too much about it? Do you know what I mean? Just put the best
exactly.
foot forward and have faith that we've followed God's calling in our life pretty much. That's how I try to view it. So it's been a big lesson.
Yeah, well, like you said, I mean, you are a Christian band, so obviously, what you're putting out lyrically wise, you're doing it for healing, for people to have healing and to have hope
Mm,
and eternal hope and all that good stuff. So, really, if your band's in God's hands, anyways, you really shouldn't be worrying about anything in the first place because it's already his timing, his
that's
plan.
right.
It's so technically it's not your band, it's his band.
Yeah, no, and I agree with that.
Ah,
No, I agree,
but
and I sort of I feel that I I often sort of think you just don't know who who's heard things. We get emails from people. Like we don't get a huge amount of emails, but we'll get emails from people, and I got one, and it was actually a guy over in America. He was like a east-west truck driver, and he said like he listened to this day forth for an entire east-west like journey, and he said like really blessed him, and I'm you know just thinking like that's incredible that just in his life in that moment that could have been what sort of given him blessing just in his work,
exactly.
so you
Yeah.
don't know how many people are doing that. Not obviously not everyone who listens and is blessed by it is going to email you to tell you. So I sort of
Yeah.
when you get those little snippets, you think, well, hopefully there's another 100 people out there who have had a similar experience, so
Yeah.
you just don't know who you're blessing, and you don't know you don't know who you might be inspiring. I'm not saying like, oh, we're inspiring, but like you just don't know. Like somebody might go on to do great things, you know, for the gospel purpose, and you might have played a small part in them doing that. So even if Grave Forsaken doesn't end up being the band that does it, you just don't know. You just
Hmm.
don't know what seeds you've helped plant with other people who go on to
Yeah.
to so I just try not to worry about any of that and just I see it as my ministry, and that's really yeah, that's been the biggest lesson, just to be okay with that and not worry about sales or streams or any of those sort of things, like because you can. And even though I say that, I'd be lying to say you don't sit there when a new album comes out and look at how the streams are going, because like
Of
human
course.
nature is to be interested in those sort of things.
Yeah, of
Um,
course.
and you want to see if people are hearing it, but to
Yeah.
be yeah, I don't like to be driven by those sort of goals.
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
They're
yes. I
they're
mean,
they're
like,
nice if they happen, but they're not the goal.
yeah, of course. Exactly. Yes. The curiosity is always there to see how well things are going. Of course. Yeah. How people are reacting. It's
Yeah.
about, it's some people, though, yes. get too overwhelmed with all that, and make it I don't know, more about themselves than it is about the overall goal of the project, which is for you ministry. So,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
absolutely. And I mean, it's also yeah, I do. And the great thing about it is it's fulfilling as like a it's something I really love doing as well. So, I get the benefit of the enjoyment of doing it, but it's for a greater purpose.
Exactly.
So it's sort of hopefully win-win. And if I worried about like sales and streams and all of that, you could just talk yourself into just quitting. You know,
Yeah.
it'd be easy just to say it was not worth it and also, um, okay, so a song gets 1,000 streams, and then you want 2,000 streams, and then it gets
Yeah.
2,000 streams, and you want 10,000 streams. So there's no cap. So yeah, I find it's better off just not worrying about it. And if it gets
Yeah.
one stream or 100, it just doesn't matter. Easier said than done, but that's definitely been a big learning for me over the years.
Yes. Good. 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 So do you have music videos and stuff on
Um,
I know you have videos YouTube channel. I just subscribed to it.
yep.
Um and so do you go ahead and tell us about it?
Yeah, so I mean, all very sort of in-house. So we did a clip for we've done a few clips over the years. So there was a clip for There Is No Peace that's on the YouTube channel. That was from
Mm-hmm.
It Has Begun. We did a clip for Mother of Harlots from This Day Forth. There's a couple of others on there. There was like a War Is Hell clip, and that was just a combined like war footage. And but more recently, we've done the uh, bloke called June Carlos Archie from Lux Media has done like lyric videos for us, which incorporate the album covers. So Temple of Crucifixion had one, and Power of Salvation from Moment in Time has one as well. So like they're sort of he sort of animates the album cover, in a sort of
Yeah,
cool
yeah, yeah.
way and does a lyric video. So yeah, we've done that for the last couple. So sort of plan with each album to at least do one of those if we don't have like an actual footage video clip. We also did one for Dare to Dream. So there's a few on there. There is a few different video clips, all sort of done with what resources we have because we don't have a huge budget. We sort of talked before about, largely being
Yeah.
self-funded. So we just do what we can with what we've got. Yeah.
Are you a graphic designer or anything like that?
No, not me personally.
No.
I mean, I can do like a basic like CD layout and that kind of thing, but the last couple of albums, like we got Scott Waters to do them. So he does a lot of the layouts now. So he's done our last few studio albums. So he does a lot of he does a lot of the Christian metal stuff these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no, I'm sort of I know a bit about a lot of things, but I'm not like fully expert in many of these sort of creative endeavors, which is why I get other people to do the covers and the layouts, and you know we try to get help with the production and all that. Though I am
Yeah.
trying to get better at production myself because that makes life easier if we can handle a lot of the production ourselves and
Of
not
course.
not relying on you know external people because even if they're offering to do it at a low rate or an affordable rate or mates rates you still you still got to pay them for their work just expect them to do all this work for you and them not receive something in return.
Of
Do you know
course.
what I mean? So it is good if we can do a lot of our own production. Yeah.
Okay. So what would you like to say to your fans?
Look, just it all sounds a bit cliche, but just like thanks so much for following us, and we just hope that our music's been a blessing and an influence in their lives, and we just really appreciate the support over 20 years. We've got some heart, some long-term fans who have followed the band for a long, long time who always order our albums. There's a core group, and a lot of those will hopefully watch this interview. We really appreciate their support and just hope that we've been a blessing in their life, and hope that we've had a positive influence on their life, and they've had a positive influence on our life, following the band and supporting us.
Any advice
And God
to?
bless all of
Oh,
them.
go ahead. And God
I was
bless
just
all of
saying,
them. Yeah,
God bless all of them,
yeah,
our fans.
definitely, definitely.
Hmm.
Any advice to a new Christian metal band that that you could probably give them?
Yeah, I would, for what it's worth, I would advise them to like not be scared to, record and do albums, and um keep like learn their craft through recording. Like we've found so much of our musical growth and development has come through the process of recording and listening back. And this is from a musical point of view, listening back and, even if it's subconscious, making improvements and like, listening to your own stuff with a critical ear. And on the next project, you improve things, and you hear something you don't quite like, so you change it. And I'd encourage people to actually finish songs. Like a lot of people, when they're in a band, they get tied up because they're trying to make the perfect song. I'd encourage all musicians to not try to make the perfect song. Like you think about all the classic bands, they put out an album every year. They were under time constraints. They weren't trying to craft, they probably were, but they didn't have the time and the resources to craft a perfect song. The the music comes when you record it, and not every song is going to be the greatest song ever. So I'd encourage bands just to record and improve through that. And that that's from a musical point of view, and from a spiritual point of view, I'd encourage them, particularly young Christian bands, to always put like God first, and the Christian message first in what they're doing. And like we talked about, not get caught up in the trappings of following stream numbers and sales, and 'cause I think a lot of great bands, I think they stop before their time because it all just gets too hard. I think they make it too difficult for themselves. I think if you just record and put it out, and have faith that God's using you. I that's been sort of a blessing in our career. Just having that confidence to just do the next project. That might all sound a bit muffled, but I think a there's a point in there somewhere.
No, it was a great point actually. So
Hmm.
how do you have a song that you've done that has really hit home to you that you've written that
There's
that
certainly ones.
getting blessed off your own music, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Um, there's a lot of our songs that like mean a lot to me. Even if the blessing has just been that they've been a blessing to people. If that so songs like the North Wind has been a blessing to us. Like that's a song that when we were playing more regularly live, would always play and would always get a good reaction. There was something about like the middle section that just worked really well live.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna that's the first one that came to my head. So I'm gonna settle on that one. That song's probably out of all our catalog, the one that's probably, I guess, closest to my heart and has been the biggest blessing on me. It's not something I've ever thought about, but yeah, definitely I'll say that song and Warriors of Light as well from Destined for Ascension.
Okay, so what's
That's
that
been
other
a
song about? That the
Warriors of
first one you
Light,
were talking about. What is it about?
the North Wind.
Yes, the
Yeah,
Northwind.
about the Holy Spirit. The North Wind was just it's about the Holy Spirit, just changing your life. So the North Wind was sort of a term that we used to represent the Holy Spirit, and it's really just about being changed by the Holy Spirit, like having it come in and like sort of positively influence who you are as a person.
Got it.
That's
Got it.
really what it's about. Yeah, it's just about that, that influence in your life. Um, And another song from that album, Harder to Hate, is kind of like a similar theme. That's about the Holy Spirit coming in to your life and, you know, because it's like a positive, loving influence that like literally makes it harder to hate things, because you've got
Yeah,
this
it's just
positive influence in your life that's sort of overriding your own humanity, which might tend towards negative. Do you know what I
yeah.
mean?
Yep, I do. I do.
Yeah, so that
It's cool.
um probably like a bit of a theme through that
Yeah.
album, actually. Yeah.
So have you ever collaborated with other artists like and other bands? Have they were guests on your albums?
The closest we came to that was Steve Rowe does a couple of vocals on Destined for Ascension. That was while we were still with Rowe Productions.
Okay.
So he did some vocals on Eternal Destiny and The Road to Damascus, which are songs off that second album. So that's the
Hmm.
closest we ever came to that. I
That's
had sort
awesome.
of
That's awesome.
yeah, it was really
That's a
cool to
can't have
get
a
him to
bigger
do that.
name. Yeah.
I, even though he was we were on Row Productions and I would at that during that period of time we'd chat a lot on the phone and stuff. I was still quite nervous about asking him to actually do vocals on the album, and we being so influenced by them, it felt very unreal that we had these vocal takes of him doing lyrics that we had written getting mixed into our songs. It did feel very strange. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you just had Bride on. I know that Dale does a lot of vocals and things like that with different projects. The thought
Yes,
has
he
crossed my
does. Yeah.
mind
Yeah.
to maybe down the track, do something like engage somebody like Dale to do vocals on a song.
Oh, he'll do it. He'll do it. Hit him up.
That would be kind of fun. I've I thought it would be cool to like maybe get. Yeah, I've never actually asked him or sent an email, but I've always thought it might be cool one day to get like a guest spot from Jimmy Brown from Deliverance. That would be fun, or someone like Luke Easter, you know, from Tourniquet. So they're thoughts that I've had, but never sort of like actually gone ahead with coming up with a part and actually going through a process of approaching those guys about it. But maybe down the track you might, you know, they I might get those guys or ask those guys if they would do a guest vocal one day. I've always thought that would be cool. That's something I've
All
never actually
right.
talked about. They've just taken that out of my head into the public sphere.
Well, if you ever need a little help or assistance talking to those three guys, I know them pretty good. So
Yeah.
I got Jim on my phone. I could just text him right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well,
or Luke Easter. He's a good guy,
I mean,
man.
I personally think that he is yeah, well I've sort of had the odd, like Facebook message with those guys over the years, but like never anything in depth, you know what I mean? But I think Jimmy Brown is actually one of the most talented musicians, Christian or secular, full stop. I mean, I love all of his work, Deliverance or Fearful Symmetry or anything that he's done, the solo EPs
Yep.
that he did not long ago. I've got all that stuff. If Jupiter 6, if he makes it, I get it. I just think he's unreal talent. That guy doesn't just
Yeah,
have to
he
be
is.
deliverance. Anything he does. Yeah.
Yeah, he's amazing. Especially, oh my,
Mm.
his vocals are amazing, but boy, his guitar, boy, he's so it's clean. That's one thing I like about their deliverance
Yeah.
sound. I mean, yeah, they're thrash, yeah, and all that, but they have such a good, clean distortion to it. Yeah, it is. It's different from a lot of the heavier stuff. I mean, I don't know, it pops, it pops out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it's a good way of describing it. It is very clean. It's sort of very spacious. His music's very spacious, and
Yeah,
I kind of think that any has his signature on it, so it almost doesn't matter what he calls the project.
yeah, it doesn't.
It's all sort of like the same. To me, it's all kind of like the same thing, just
Yeah,
different aspects of the same source. Yeah.
yeah. But he has done a lot of experimenting himself. You can tell in a lot of his music. He had XL, different other artists that came onto his albums, to add a little bit of variety, which is good.
Yeah.
But he pulled it
Yeah.
off. I think he pulled it off pretty well. I think he pulls it off pretty well.
Yeah, well, I don't think he's got a bad project, to be honest. Yeah,
Yeah,
I would agree.
definitely. As so, uh, what do you plan? Oh, when do you plan on the new album probably being released?
Uh, we're going to need like at least this year to record it. So I'd like to think that
Next year, then?
2026. Yeah,
Okay.
2026. Yeah. It's only in the early stages, so there's still quite a bit of work to do. So 2026 is realistic. So that's what I'm aiming for. So that's yeah. Um, if it takes longer, it might be longer, but I'm pretty keen on. There was like a 4 year gap between Moment in Time and Footsteps of God, which was too long for me. So I don't want to. That was really just through life being busy, that we just didn't get it finished.
It
Well, we
happens.
did eventually, but it took longer than we
Yeah.
wanted to. So yeah, 2026 is the aim for the next album. Yeah. So that's what I'm working towards.
All right. Well, that's
There's
awesome.
nothing official yet, but that's what we're working towards. Yeah.
Well, love to have you back when you get that album done, and you can do a promo
Oh,
and talk about
absolutely.
it,
Yeah.
all that, and talk about all the lyrics, and let us know about it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and maybe you even
Yeah.
have a
No,
couple
we'd love to. And,
of
we've
your
got the,
mates on the band. Other bandmates could be on here too
yeah.
when that comes out. So, all right.
Yeah. Well, that's what, obviously with the time difference and everything, we'd have to line that up. But yeah, that would love to do that. So yeah, maybe next time we'll have all three of us of the current
That'd be
lineup. Yeah, that would be
that'd be
great.
brilliant. And then we'll get
Yeah.
Steve on it. Just joking.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
That'd be a
I haven't.
miracle.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
would be. I haven't. He's not.
I,
He's sort of quite private now,
yeah. I heard he's
Steve.
going through
So
some
I haven't
health
actually
issues.
had contact with him for. Yeah, I think it's always a challenge for him, and it doesn't get any easier for him, as time
Yeah,
marches on. So, yeah, I send my regards to him through people who know him, but I haven't actually spoken to him for a while myself. So, he's always on my thought. He's always in my thoughts, though. I
yeah,
would think about Steve
definitely.
every day, you
Yeah,
know.
love you, Steve.
Yeah,
Love you, Steve. Man, definitely do.
yeah, absolutely.
Well, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you for your time. We're down to the nitty
Yeah,
gritty,
no, thank
man.
you.
Yeah, definitely. It was an honor. It was a
I hope
privilege.
it's
It was a
been good.
pleasure.
Yeah, same. I've really enjoyed it, and yeah, even though I hope the slight gap hasn't been difficult, but I've heard you loud and clear, so I hope you've been able to hear me as well.
Yes, it's been brilliant. It's been awesome.
Yeah, great. Okay,
It
well, you
cut out
got
a
the
couple of
messenger.
times, but it was a lot better than yeah than my
Yeah,
interviews
or
in
opposite
America.
sides.
I don't get it. You're like so far over
Yeah.
there, and I'm like
I
getting
mean,
you
little old
so
Jared Allen
clearly.
here.
And I'll have someone right next to me in Texas, and I'm in Idaho, and I get them cutting out every 2 seconds. It's like,
Yeah, it can depend so much just on the local connection. We've got a reasonably good connection at our place here, so it must just be two good connections and it's gone okay. I was a bit concerned, I'll be honest, like because whenever you do this sort of thing, like they can be plagued with technical difficulties, but we've managed to avoid that.
well, especially since you're in the future.
So that's good.
You're in the future right now.
Yeah,
Like
that's
what?
right. Yeah,
Some parts
it
of
was actually like
Australia are 14 hours difference, I guess.
yeah, so it's and it's no problem at all. It's I'm just looking at the time. It's 2:20 a.m. here, so I'm in the middle of the night.
Ooh.
But that's all right. That's fine. It's Sunday tomorrow, so I don't have to go to work in the morning, so that's fine.
Yeah, it's twelve
Yeah,
twenty here. 12:20 p.m.
12:20
here. PM.
p.m. Yeah. So yeah, 14 hours,
It's noon, yeah.
right? Yes. So 12:20 afternoon. Yeah. Mountain time. I hadn't heard of mountain time until today, until I saw your message. So I googled what's mountain time to work out
Well, now
when
you know. That's my
I do
lingo.
now. I know. Yeah, I've got
Uh,
it.
all right. Much love
Excellent.
to you.
Okay,
Much love to you,
no
brother.
worries.
And
Thanks for having us. God bless,
definitely,
and yeah, yeah, love what you're doing, and appreciate it.
you're very welcome. Always welcome
Okay.
here.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
And God bless.
God bless and rock on. I always
Rock
like to
on you
say.
too. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
no worries. Okay.
Cheers.
See ya.